Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer on unpacking the IB Computer Science IA. We're kicking things off right away with the absolute foundation of a 7. Look, if you're watching this, chances are you're about to start your internal assessment. Or maybe you've actually already started and you're feeling, well, completely overwhelmed. You might be sitting there wondering, how do I actually score well? Or what on earth are the examiners really looking for? And if you've searched online, you've probably hit a wall of a dozen different people giving a dozen completely different pieces of advice. Well, this explainer is a bit different. We are going to focus purely on the official IB assessment criteria. Why? Because every single mark you earn comes directly from those criteria, not from writing the most code, definitely not from using artificial intelligence, and no, not from making the prettiest user interface. It literally all comes down to how well you satisfy the official rubric. Now, before we really get into the weeds here, I want you to absorb this single golden rule. Actually, let's call it a mindset shift. Don't try to build the most complicated project. Build the most well-documented solution to a meaningful problem. Let that sink in for a second. This one single mindset completely shifts the entire focus of the IA. It genuinely changes absolutely everything about how you should approach your work. So here is our architectural blueprint for today. We'll cover 1. The core IA mindset. 2. The 30-mark blueprint. 3. Foundation, criteria A and B. 4. Construction, criteria C and D. And finally, 5. Evaluation and success roadmap. Let's dive in. Section 1. The core IA mindset, a problem-solving investigation. We need to address a massive misconception right out of the gate. A lot of students think the IA is just a giant programming assignment. It really isn't. The computer science IA is a problem-solving investigation. The examiner wants to know if you can identify a real, meaningful problem and then actually solve it using computational thinking. That means your coding, it's only one part of the assessment. The examiner is equally interested in how you planned, how you designed the system, how you justified your decisions, how you tested your solution, and ultimately, how you evaluated whether your solution actually solved the original problem in the first place. The whole shebang starts with one single thing, the problem. And this brilliantly illustrates what I like to call the domino effect. Think about how these steps sequence together. No problem? Well, that means no solution. No solution means no success criteria. And without success criteria, you literally cannot properly plan. Without planning, your system overview becomes incredibly weak. Without a strong system overview, your actual development just lacks direction. And if your success criteria were weak from the very beginning, your final evaluation has absolutely nothing meaningful to evaluate. Every single criterion is intricately, tightly connected. Section 2. The 30-mark blueprint. Understanding the rubric. Let's break down how this builds into the actual marking structure. Out of 30 total marks, criterion A is 4 marks, B is 4 marks, C is 6 marks, E is 4 marks, and then boom, there's criterion D, development, carrying a massive 12 marks. That's the largest chunk of your IA by far. But I need to warn you right now, you absolutely cannot write an excellent criterion D if your first 3 criteria are weak. Everything builds on top of everything else. It's exactly like constructing a building. Would you ever start building a house without pouring a foundation? Of course not. No way. Criterion A is that foundation. Criterion B is your blueprint. Criterion C is the engineering design. Criterion D is the physical construction of the building. And Criterion E is the final inspection to see if that building actually achieved its purpose. You absolutely must respect the foundation. Section 3. Foundation. Criteria A and B, which are problem specification and planning. So let's unpack that foundational phase right now. Criterion A asks one very simple question. What problem are you solving? Notice it does not ask what application are you building. Those are two completely different things. A student might say, oh, I'm making a fitness tracker. Okay, but that's not a problem, that's a product. Instead, you've got to ask yourself what genuine issue your solution actually addresses. For example, athletes have difficulty analyzing their long-term progress, or maybe students don't have an organized way to maintain healthy habits. See the difference? Now we have a genuine, meaningful problem. For this 4-mark criterion, which should be roughly 300 words, you need to hit a few key elements. You must describe the problem scenario clearly. Why does it exist and who actually experiences it? You need measurable solution requirements, and crucially, you need testable success criteria. These are outcomes you can literally prove later on. Like the system allows users to search records in less than 5 seconds, or the system validates incorrect inputs. You also need to justify why a computational solution is better than just doing it manually, and assess if your idea is realistically feasible given your software, hardware, and current knowledge. An ambitious idea that you can never actually finish is definitely not a good IA. Okay, so once you know the problem, criterion B asks how you're going to solve it. This is planning. And it's not asking if you own a calendar, it's asking if you can think like a software developer. That means utilizing decomposition. That's breaking a giant problem down into smaller, much more manageable components. If you're building a study planner, don't just write, "I'll build the app." Break it down. Design the login system, create the task manager, design the database separately. You'll also need a realistic timeline. And you should show informed decision-making by mentioning any research you did on programming libraries or frameworks. Keep this one concise, around 150 words. Section 4. Construction. Criteria C and D, the system overview and development. With our foundation firmly set, let's transition into the actual engineering and construction phases. Criterion C is your system overview, worth 6 marks. I want you to imagine another programmer had to recreate your application from scratch. Could they do it using your documentation alone? If the answer is yes, you've written a strong system overview. You need system model diagrams showing how inputs, processing, and outputs all interact. You need your user interface design, and not just screenshots. You need to explain the rationale behind your usability choices. You need to show your logic and algorithms using flowcharts or pseudocode. And finally, outline your intended testing strategy. Notice, this isn't the actual testing yet. It's explaining how you intend to verify correctness, reliability, and efficiency based on those success criteria we talked about. Now, here is an absolutely crucial point. When we move to criterion D, the development phase, you must boldly document your decision-making. The examiner does not want pages and pages of code just dumped into your document. Nobody wants to read that. They want meaningful excerpts of your code, and more importantly, they want you to explain your why. For these 12 marks, which will take up around 1,000 words, you aren't just showing that the code works. You are proving your competence. Why did you use that specific data structure? Why was that particular algorithm appropriate? You need to take important sections of your build, like validations, searching, sorting, or database interactions, and explain what they do and exactly how they solve the original problem. And of course, you must demonstrate that your product actually works, reliably and efficiently. Oh, and remember to reference your complete source code in the appendix. Section 5. Evaluation and Success Roadmap. Inspecting the build and planning your time. Let's move into our final phase, inspecting the structural integrity of your build and giving you a concrete timeline to get all this done without losing your mind. Criterion E is your evaluation, typically around 400 words. Please, whatever you do, do not simply summarize your project here. That is a massive common mistake. Evaluation means judging your product directly against the success criteria you established all the way back in Criterion A. Take every single criterion, ask yourself honestly if you achieved it, and provide the evidence. Don't just say it works. Explain why it works. And hey, if it didn't work perfectly, be honest. Examiners actually appreciate honest reflection. Finally, suggest realistic, meaningful improvements that logically extend your current product, explaining why they would make the solution better. Now, I highly recommend you jot down this timeline or save it for later. This is a highly realistic roadmap for your success. Spend your first 1 to 5 days choosing a meaningful problem and completing Criterion A. Don't rush it. A strong foundation here literally saves weeks of work later. Then begin building immediately. Aim to have your product largely complete by mid-July, naturally evolving your planning and system overview documentation as you go. By mid-August, you should complete Criterion D and write your final evaluation. Sticking to a realistic timeline like this leaves you some much-needed breathing room for your extended essay, TOK, and all your other IB subjects. And this brings us right back to our core mantra. The IA is not 5 isolated tasks. It is one entirely interconnected blueprint. Your problem defines your success criteria. Your success criteria guide your planning. Your planning shapes your system. Your system guides your development, and your development is ultimately evaluated against the success criteria you wrote at the very beginning. The whole thing links back to the start. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. Are your success criteria strong enough to build a 7? Think about that carefully as you look at your initial ideas. In our next explainer, we're going to dive really deep into Criterion A and show you exactly how to write those measurable success criteria and avoid the traps that cost students valuable marks. Remember, if you're looking for personalized guidance, roadmap support, or timeline planning for computer science or any other IB component, you can reach out to us using the contact details in the description. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.